Good evening. So, my name is Sylvan. I'm 25 now, and back in November 2022, I started this bike trip. This is the map of where I went. To follow with my finger here, started in Oregon, the US, Baja California, mainland Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and down at the bottom here, you need to cross the border between Chile and Argentina several times before getting to Ushuaia. From Ushuaia, I hitchhiked back to Bolivia and stayed in Bolivia for a while without cycle touring, and then got on my bike again and went through northern Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, Uruguay, briefly back to Argentina to visit Buenos Aires, and then flew to South Africa. I flew into Johannesburg, cycled South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, and then from Addis Ababa, capital of Ethiopia, I took a plane back to Vancouver, British Columbia, and cycled back to Oregon from there. It took about 1,000 days, about 2 years and 10 months or so, and the total distance I think was about 27,000 miles. So each color represents 1 month.
Oh, that's smart.
Daily distance, the average overall would be 30 miles a day, but I was only actually cycling for about 2/3 of the day, like a half or 2/3 of the day of those 1,000 days. This is a picture of the bicycle I used. It changed a bit over time. This is how it looked at the end of my trip, though. And people give a lot of different advice about what kind of bike to use for a bike tour. One thing you hear is that the best bike is just the one you already have. And I think there is a lot of truth to that. I could ramble about what bike parts I like to use for the whole evening, but this is the synopsis basically. Wider tires and a low gear I find to be very helpful in avoiding cars, because the biggest danger to me is cars, and it's not that I'm dead set on avoiding pavement, but I just like not to die. So I really try and avoid the cars, and I find that having a low gear and wider tires helps with that. Yeah, question?
What saddle did you use?
This saddle came off of a used mountain bike that I bought a couple of years ago. It was a Bontrager saddle, I remember that much. And the plastic covering eventually wore out, but I took it to an upholstery shop I was in Peru, and some people at the hostel recommended I could take it to an upholstery shop. So I went to this shop that does commercial upholstery for truckers, and I asked them to give me the best leather they had. Maybe. I don't know what it was, but it's strong. it's strong. It lasted another couple of years of use. And yeah, so it's just a thin leather on foam, but it's comfortable. It's comfortable enough. Yeah. That's the bike. So where to sleep? This is a huge part of cycle touring. And if you don't know where you're going to sleep at night, you end up putting a lot of effort into figuring that out. It can take up a lot of time and effort. Finding a comfortable place to sleep, finding a safe place to sleep. And so that's a real task, especially when you don't know what's ahead. Much of the time I was tent camping, which I love. I think of tent camping or wild camping as camping outside when you don't anticipate interacting with people, when you don't anticipate being found, basically. Here's some more examples of what that looked like for me. This is in southern Chile. Little campfire going there. Oh yeah, I camped in that hole. This is in southern Argentina. Known to be a very windy area. And it was raining about like it is now, plus extremely windy, so I had left the previous night's culvert at about 2 a.m. and then found this partially obstructed culvert at around 6 a.m. and got some sleep.
Sylvan, is it true that you don't spend any money to sleep anywhere?
How much was the hole?
The whole, luckily I didn't have to have to pay anything, but if somebody was standing outside waiting to charge me, I would have paid maybe like $25, because it was quite windy. Often the wild camping is better than a culvert. This is in Ecuador. And when I'm wild camping, I would define wild camping as when you're not expecting to be found. You're not expecting to interact with people, but it's often a possibility nevertheless. So this is Uruguay, and this is a frontage road along a highway. And so, I'm more likely to meet up with somebody there. A couple cyclists went by, but Uruguay was a very safe country where people were familiar with cycle tourists, so I wasn't concerned about having any security issues or inconveniences if somebody did find me. So, moving on from wild camping, you also have kind of camping in public places, which is something I would do a lot more if there wasn't wild camping opportunities. Here I'm camping at a construction site, and in this case, I'd be talking more with the local people, interacting with them, asking for their advice, asking for permission. Here's some more examples of that. This is at a gas station. This is in Zimbabwe. So, you can go up and chat with the gas station attendant. Often they're open 24 hours and there's 24-hour security. And often people working at these kinds of establishments are excited to talk to somebody. They see a lot of people passing through, and so it's another good opportunity to chat with some local people. And they also usually are going to have all the services you need. This is close to the Mexico-Guatemala border. I think this was out front of some shopping center or something. I honestly don't remember. But that little gray building is a security booth. So they had 24-hour security there. Now, moving on from just camping in public places. Yeah, question?
Yeah, in that situation, you just like locking your bike up outside or sleeping with it?
Yeah, so you're asking about securing the bike when I'm sleeping there, is that right?
Yeah.
So I actually had a small lock, and I would just put the lock around my bike and maybe tie my bike to the tent too. That way, you know, if somebody tried to move it, then I would hear.
Yeah.
But I never had a problem with that. Yeah. So moving on from public camping, when I would ask about where I could stay, often it could lead to really meeting somebody and sharing a little bit more. So in this instance, I had asked the homeowner if I could camp in a nearby field, a nearby like yard looking area. And he let me stay on his porch there under his roof. And I made some food, shared it with his daughter there. And then, you know, he was happy to invite me in. We watched some football and I used his bathroom. And that was it. I was proceeded the next morning. This is another time. I was just asking for a place to camp, asking if I could set up my tent close to their garden. And they let me set it up on their porch there, out of the rain. This is in northern Colombia. And people were incredibly hospitable to me, particularly in Latin America. This is in Zimbabwe. I had left a large town and I had gone to historic ruins earlier that day, so I was kind of running out of daylight, which is a situation you often run into bike touring, looking for a place to camp. In this instance, there was basically a total language barrier. It was really hard to communicate because very few people spoke any English and I didn't know any of their local language. And also in the area where I was, the population density was pretty high and also pretty rural. So it was not going to be feasible to find a wild campsite where I wouldn't be meeting people. So I just tried to communicate with sign language if I could set up my tent on the road next to her house. And she went and got a shovel and started to clear out a place for my tent. So I took that as a yes. And later on, her and some other local people told me that there might be some animals. And I asked what kind of animals, and luckily they were only concerned about their donkeys stepping on my tent. But they insisted that I move inside the fence nevertheless because of the donkeys, so they invited me inside their fence line here. And yeah, there's my little house next to theirs. they also invited me to a warm bath, which is very nice. So, yeah, it's really this kind of experience that reminds me why I'm bike touring. Yeah, question?
Have they encountered this situation before? Like, camping?
I would guess no. The question is if these people had encountered cyclotourists before. I would guess no. And the countries I was cycling through in Africa were not. There are plenty of other cyclotourists who do the same route. But I was going on a smaller road here, which makes a big difference. When I'm cyclotouring on a larger road, like a primary freeway or something, I would meet other cyclists. I met several in Malawi and Zambia. But here, where I was in Zimbabwe, it was a small dirt track, sandy, very sandy. So I really doubt that they had, but who knows? This is another good memory, being invited in. This is in Mexico. This is also Mexico. What's that?
You got dressed up for that one.
They provide me with that shirt.
Whoa. Are you okay?
We all right? Yeah, they provided me with that shirt. Maybe they were trying to tell me something. Oh.
Power cord is in the tree.
I think that's a motivation.
You can't live with a tree down.
Okay, moving on. This is also Zimbabwe. The gentleman on the right, he made this house, and I got to sleep in it. He was very nice. He was a rhino guard. So they have some of the last white rhinos there in Zimbabwe, and his job was, he kind of had a paramilitary training. His job was to protect the rhinos. But he was a very nice host to me. This is Argentina. My friend there in the middle. Colombia. I got invited in Colombia almost every night. Question?
Did you have a predestined route from city to city and start supporting all the way down, or did you just kind of
Yeah, so the question is about how I plan my route, right? And how I choose where to go. There's a lot to that. Let's see, do I want to talk about that now? So, I think I'll get to that later on, yeah. But if I forget, remind me. So, I got invited in almost every night in Colombia. It was definitely the most incredibly open country. People are very hospitable. This is a memorable one. Many of the towns, most of the towns in Latin America were centered around a central square. and there would be some trees, some places to sit, a church on one side, and I have a recorder I like to play, just as a pastime. I had arrived at this town, I got to the center square, and I had something to eat. I was playing my recorder a little bit, and this gentleman came up, and we were just chatting. He was, asking the basic questions: where are you going? Where are you coming from? And he said that he played a flute also. So he invited me to his house, and we made some food. Then he started asking me about my sex life.
What did you tell him?
Well, I was uncomfortable. I tried to change the subject. But eventually, kind of slow, but eventually I realized the intentions, and I understood our prior miscommunication about the flute. So I told him in my very best Spanish that I was not interested in having that kind of relationship with him. And he was a gracious host nonetheless. We enjoyed our meal together. He was completely understanding, and I spent the night there, and it was all fine. But that's a good memory. So after that, I found a wild campsite, and this is in Colombia, in the Colombian Andes. Luckily, this time I had enough food and water that I just stayed for an extra night. So, getting invited in is both the most enriching experience, the most, it can be a beautiful little window into people's lives, but it can also be exhausting. And so I took the opportunity to read my book for a day and have some time alone. I did stay in hotels occasionally, more so in Africa than in Latin America, because the wild camping was much more challenging in Africa. Most of the places I was cycling through had a very high population density, and there was usually more of a language barrier. So I stayed in hotels sometimes. This is a hotel in Ethiopia. I don't know any Amharic, and so I could just tell by the bed. That's a picture of a bed. The hotel, this hotel had fleas and bed bugs. What's that? And yeah.
Looks like you had makeshift fenders there.
Yeah, that's right. I like to make a lot of the soft components on my bicycle. So I made the frame bag and those leather bags and the fender and the handlebar carry system.
Personal choice.
Yeah. I would adjust my equipment along the way, and I like fiddling with things and making things just how I like them. So yeah. So how to get from, that's backwards. How to get it from North America to South America. So, maybe you can consider the Panama Canal the link between the border between North and South America. If that's the case, then I just rode my bike directly to South America because it's a bridge. This is crossing the Panama Canal here. But if you consider it the Darien Gap, I kayaked. So here's the route.
No, where's the bike?
Yeah, so I met a Mexican couple who were traveling the Americas by van, and they shipped their van to South America from North America, and I just put my bike in the back. Yeah. They shipped it to Cartagena here. So Panama City is about here. I bought a kayak on Facebook Marketplace and then took a taxi to this is the easternmost port in Panama that has roads connected to it. So I put in here and then paddled for 10 days this is Necoclí in Colombia, which is the closest port that has road access in Colombia. And then I just took a bus to Cartagena to pick up my bicycle. Kayaked.
No,
What?
after the kayak.
Oh, no, I took a bus for this part. So I sold the kayak here and then took a bus to Cartagena to pick up my bicycle. Yeah. There's a question about cartels. So I hadn't done this kind of kayak trip before, and I basically brainstormed a list of all the things I thought might kill me and tried to evaluate what I could do about mitigating those risks. And I don't think that cartels were a risk to me almost at all. So my understanding is that they primarily move along specific routes, and I wasn't really along those routes. Maybe there are some that go by sea, by along the water here, but my impression is that most of those drug and human trafficking operations they're pretty big operations. It's like a business, it's like a big operation. And while it's true that I had some cash on me, I think it would be like, the analogy I think of is like a long haul trucker stopping at a free box. Like, sure, they could take all of my things, but I think they had bigger fish to fry because it's a pretty big operation. Also,
How many days is that?
so this is 10 days. 10 days and about 190 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you research it? Does anyone ever fight the Darien Gap, or is it possible? Is it possible? Yeah.
To actually cycle it?
Yeah, I don't know, carry bikes through the mud.
What?
Like carry bike through the mud for sections, I'm sure. Like ford rivers, right? Like the Darien Gap's gnarly, right?
Yeah, I didn't really look into that.
Okay.
I know people have, there's a woman who was walking the Americas. So she started in Ushuaia and is going completely by foot to Dead Horse, Alaska. And so you can walk it. So presumably you could carry a bicycle, but that didn't really appeal to me. So I decided to go by water instead. Yeah, before I did this, I had found a couple of reports online about people who had kayaked this previously. So I had about 4 or 5 trip reports to help inform this.
If you had to ship your bike, you think you possibly could have kayaked and freezing? Would you entertain that?
Yeah, so there's a gentleman who kayaked it with his bicycle a couple months before I did. And he was actually an inspiration and a resource in taking this on. Yeah, he had a tandem kayak. Yeah.
You like kayak for a certain amount and then fall to the shoreline and just camp
Yeah, that's right. I have some more pictures. Yeah, let's move on. So, it's an inhabited coastline. It's not, it didn't really feel that remote actually because it's inhabited. I was very far from, like, maybe what you consider first world services, but it was an inhabited coastline. There are people that live there all the time. In fact, there were plenty of people. I would see people all throughout the day, and they mostly get around by boat close by the shore. So I was interacting with people every day. This is Evaristo. He's from the Guna tribe, which is the indigenous tribe that lives in this northern coastline of Panama still. And when I met him, he was out hunting some octopus. And he invited me to his home that night. So I paddled back with him to his village, got permission from their village president, and got to meet some of the people who live there. This is his daughter in the red shirt. And those are the dugout canoes they use. So that was a really special experience. I think that I would have liked to linger with them for longer. I had this clear goal on this section of the trip of trying not to die and trying to do it safely. And so I wanted to minimize my exposure time. So when there was good weather, I just kept paddling. So I didn't hang out with them for very long, although I'm confident that they would have been happy to have me for longer. But I just spent one night there. So on the kayak trip, I usually camped. This is an unoccupied island here. So it might look like a paradise. There were a lot of these midges though, midges, like no-see-ums, these little biting flies, and they were small enough to fit through the mosquito netting on my tent, and so that made it a bit of a grueling experience sometimes. Anyway, I did eventually arrive. This is on the beach in Necoclí in Colombia.
You're given a lot to eat.
Yeah. And this is, I sold the kayak. Necoclí here. So, I think bike touring can look a lot of different ways. People can approach it differently. This is a guy from Colorado in Baja California doing a popular bike packing route. You can see he's got modern equipment, and he just fly down to Baja and do this trip for a couple weeks and then fly back. This is a gentleman who we met a couple times. He had sold all of his possessions. He had sold his condo and bought a roll-off bike and 4 Orly panniers, And he had been on the road for several years already when I met him, and I think he's still on the road. So that's another way to do it. This is a woman who I met in Ecuador, and she was volunteering at a hostel, so she didn't have a bicycle, but she had a backpack. And she ended up buying a bicycle for like $80 and strapping the backpack to the rear rack, and we pedaled together for a couple of weeks. So that's another way to bike tour. This is a Dutch gentleman who I cycled with in several countries. We had a similar pace, and so it was nice to have a riding companion for a while. This gentleman on the right is from Russia, and the guy on the left is from Chile. He had been on the road for 18 years, mostly entirely in South America. Yeah, he was quite a character. He didn't have a passport, so he told me that when he approached a border, he would put on his headphones and turn up the volume and just ride through. And that's another way to cycle through her, yeah. A lot of the cycle tourists from Latin America who I met would have some kind of work, some kind of hustle they did in order to fund their travels. So most of the American, Canadian, and European cyclists I met would work in their home countries and save up money, or have some kind of remote job they could do, and then cycle for however long they wanted, or for however long they could financially. Yeah? Question?
Was it pretty, all that software goes crossing borders, like, was it pretty fluid when you cross the border? Is there like pretty strong security checkpoints when you cross the border?
Yeah, so every border was a little different, but I learned that my passport is very powerful. It's extremely powerful to have an American passport. And I was never denied entry to a country. Yeah.
You didn't have to get a visa.
There are a couple of countries that do require visas for American passport holders. So for me, the only one in the Americas was Bolivia. They actually recently stopped requiring visas for American citizens. But more countries in Africa required a visa. Zimbabwe, Kenya, Ethiopia, those all require visas. But none of those countries were particularly closed to American citizens. And so qualifying for the visa was trivial. Kind of like our previous presenter mentioned, I think I had a similar experience of basically just needing to be able to pay for it. So yeah, kind of pay to win visas. Yeah, thanks to having an American passport, I guess.
But it wasn't like a lengthy process. You just paid for it and just get the visa right away.
I see what you mean. So again, it depends country to country, but most of the countries that I needed to have a visa for, you'd need to do it in advance. I think the only one that had a visa on arrival was Zimbabwe. So in that case, you arrive at the border, at the immigration office, and do the process there and pay there. But with most of the countries, like in Bolivia, I went to the Bolivian consulate when I was in Peru still, and got my visa a couple weeks in advance. So there is some planning. Yeah, you gotta look ahead and see what countries require visas and what the visa requirements are. And on my route, that wasn't very complicated. Obviously you could think up a bike touring route that would have a nightmare of a visa issue. But for me, it just required some planning and some thinking ahead, but I could easily qualify for everything, which is part of why I chose to cycle where I did. So going back to your question about route choice, looking at my passport and looking at what countries I can go to a reasonable starting place if you want to do a multi-year trip and you don't want to be getting on planes all the time. So yeah, that actually had a lot to do with route choice, now that I think of it. Yeah.
When did you start and finish?
I started on November 12th of 2022, oops, and I finished, when was it? Well, I got back to Portland like 4 months ago. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. Here's another way to bike tour. Talk about making your own gear. This guy made his own basket,
That's pretty sick.
and you know, some people go light. Some people will cut the handle off their toothbrush. I don't know whether or not this guy cut the handle off his toothbrush, but he did have a chair.
You look so happy. You look fun. I love it.
So this is a great guy to meet. And yeah, so that's another way to bike tour. So this guy, we kind of saw each other. We were going opposite directions, at about the same pace. We were both carrying camping gear. And I think we recognized that we were actually kind of doing something similar just by looking at each other. So this is in Chile, and he was traveling like several thousand kilometers just on his horse. And so, yeah, it might make you question, you know, can you bike tour on a horse? Because what he was doing had a lot of similarities to the experience I was having, even though he was on a different vehicle. This is in Zambia. So there's kind of two details here. Obviously the elephants. Right before I took this video, I had gotten charged by one of these things, which was horrible. It was a horrible experience. I had been warned about elephants for a while, like coming up to this point. This is right next to Victoria Falls, which is at the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. And all throughout Zimbabwe, I had seen evidence of elephants, you know, caution elephants crossing signs and elephant poop, and I heard them in the bushes. I saw their pee on the ground, but I had never actually seen one. And so then I get to this pretty large urban area surrounding this world famous tourist destination of Victoria Falls. And it's an urban area, you know, there's like traffic lights and stuff. So I think I probably won't see an elephant here. But as soon as I got into Zambia, I crossed the bridge over Victoria Falls, and I was going down the left side of the road because you're driving on the left in Zambia, and a car approached me from the other side, stopped, and yelled at me, and I looked to my right at the car, then they point to my left, and then I see this elephant coming towards me, and the other cyclist who was right behind me, he jumped off his bike and ran. And I had read not to run, so I kind of just froze and let my bike roll by, and luckily I didn't get trampled. So yeah, that makes me feel some type of way. The other point here, a lot of cyclists carrying huge towers of boxes on their bike. And this is something I saw a lot, particularly in many of the African countries I went through. People using bicycles people using bicycles as an economic tool. People using bikes as general transport.
That's pretty sick. That's so cool. Really impressive.
People using bikes as a taxi here. All right, moving on. Road conditions. I'll try and talk about route choices now also. So this is what I try to avoid. I try and avoid big cities. This is leaving, where was it? Asunción, Paraguay. This is leaving the capital of Paraguay. And yeah, my rule number one for avoiding car traffic is just trying to avoid capital cities and large cities if I can. Let's see, so big picture route. I started in Oregon because I was already here. And I wanted to go on a long trip. I had heard of people going south through Ushuaia. And also the visa situation made it feasible. So that's how I chose to go south. And then from there, sometimes I would follow routes that other people had made and put online. Sometimes, most of the time I was choosing my own route. But my primary concern is being on roads that are relatively safe regarding car traffic. So that's really number one for my safety. And after that, if there's a tourist destination I want to visit, I would go there, or a recommendation, or if I knew somebody along the route, then that would also affect my decision making.
I guess part of me asking that was just kind of envisioning like how you deal with replenishment, or if you have like a long store in between, like including water.
Yeah, so resupply. Most of the time, broadly on the trip, it was rare that I would go more than a day without the water resupply or more than 2 days without food resupply. So the most remote sections were in Nevada and Bolivia. Yeah, the southwest parts of Nevada where I rode, and then also the southwest parts of Bolivia, maybe up to 5 days without a food resupply, and then maybe up to 3 days without a water resupply. But that was a pretty rare scenario.
But like, then you went into the Darien Gap for 10 days. How do you actually?
Yeah, okay, that was an exception, but I was actually totally over-prepared. So I planned on doing it with no food resupply, so I went ahead and bought like 40,000 calories of like dense food from the grocery store, and planned on going 10 days without a food resupply. But there were just communities along the way. I could have stopped at any of these. I could have stopped every day if I wanted to and gotten probably a prepared meal to eat. Yeah.
Speaking of like just the cars, man, how many accidents, if any, and like what were like the circumstances, like run-ins? What close calls were for?
Yeah, I never got hit by a car.
Did you hit a
Yeah, I also never hit a car. Let's see. I can remember one time I went over the handlebars. I didn't have anything on my bike. I was trying to hit some single track, and quickly got in too deep and just went over the handlebars. Another time, I had just gotten to Mexico, and I was kind of still figuring out the dog situation and navigating that. And I had some dogs barking at me, surprised me, so I looked at them and then hit a pothole. But honestly, that was the 2 times I can remember crashing. Yeah, very high consequence with cars, for sure. This is in the Peruvian Amazon. Challenging place to cycle tour. Maybe if I had stuck to the pavement, then I would have had a better luck with that. But shortly after this, I ended up coming to a river that was like much, much larger than this. And I ended up waiting there for a day for it to go down, because local people would check the weather forecast and then kind of make some kind of intuitive calculation about when the rain up in the Andes was going to reach the Amazon. And I ended up getting a ride across that river with some folks in a truck. Yeah. You can encounter this also. Planning around the seasons for route choice. There's a lesson there. This is in Bolivia. Bolivia has it frequently has roadblocks as a form of protest. And so you can see all the trucks on the left side of the traffic of the road there are all stopped at a roadblock. There will be a mound of dirt basically that people put in the road to prevent any traffic from going past as a form of protest. But it was no problem for people on foot and on bicycle, so we did get to enjoy an empty highway. Obviously, bad situation, but I at least got to enjoy an empty road. This is, a lot of my roads looked kind of more like this in Africa and in the Americas. This reminds me of something. Actually, I think that the U.S. is, in my opinion, the most dangerous country I've cycle toured in because of the car traffic. People in the U.S. often ask me about, danger, kind of in a vague way. But in terms of actually dying or getting seriously injured, the way that a bike interacts with traffic in the U.S. feels very dangerous to me. And often it can be difficult or impossible to find a viable alternate route from the highway. In a lot of the other countries, even their largest roads were much smaller and in worse condition, which means that the cars have to go slower. Also, there were generally more alternate forms of transport than in the US, and livestock, cattle, llamas, other animals. And so I was sharing the road with all of those other road users, which made me feel a lot more safe. Great scenery in Peru. This is on the Peru Great Divide route. is Peru.
So how are you taking the pictures?
This picture, I just put my phone on a timer. Yeah.
The video going through those creeks?
Yeah, it was either, oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, I just walked across the creek and set up my phone there and took the video, yeah. Yeah,
Just back to it.
I have had suggestions that I produce content and make videos, put it on YouTube, do a daily check-in video, something like that. And so I tried to dabble in that a little bit at some point. And pretty quickly decided that it wasn't for me. But it is something that I met a lot of people who do. I find it can take away a lot from the experience I was having. And financially, with the countries I was traveling through, it makes a lot more sense for me to work in the US and save up money and then travel. Which is how most Europeans and Americans traveled like this.
And some of the areas that you were going to were pretty remote, and we wouldn't even have connection.
Actually, you would be surprised. I had internet almost every night when I was in Africa. Yeah. And people use cell phones. People use cell phones all the time. And also because the population it felt like, I don't know the demographics precisely, but it felt like it was very dispersed. And so lots of places where I was touring in Africa particularly is what I'm talking about now. I would never be out of sight of a person. And so I had internet all the time. It wasn't particularly fast, but I did have internet all the time. Now, I don't think you need that to produce content, because cyclists who do long form videos are not uploading every day. But yeah.
Did you run a dyno or anything for like lights or power?
Yeah, I started out with a generator on the front wheel, and it developed play after about 3,000 miles. So I replaced it with like a $450 dynamo, and in hopes that it would last longer. Unfortunately, it also got play, and I was able to get a refund. But I think my personal take is that dynamos are overrated for touring and underrated for commuting, because modern electronic equipment usually has too much, usually draws too much power to really reliably charge them from a dynamo. And for light use, like for your bike lights, you probably aren't going to be riding at night anyways, as a cycle tourist. And also power banks are pretty mature, they're pretty developed technology, pretty reliable. And if you're traveling in Latin America or Africa, you can probably afford staying in lodging often enough to charge. So yeah, I would not tour with a generator hub again.
You have
Yeah.
a power bank.
Yeah, I had a power bank. Yeah.
Did you ever bring like inmates for people?
Yeah. So the longest, let's see, I went without internet for about 10 days when I was in Baja California, and the local, somebody who I had met notified my parents that they hadn't heard from me, and there was a bit of a scare. And so after that, my parents got me an InReach, which I used for the rest of the trip. Yeah.
Parents.
Yes.
So does that have navigation as well?
The InReach is a GPS, so the one I had, I didn't use it for navigation, no. I think maybe you could, but I don't think you can load base maps onto it, or even if you could, it'd be not really practical to read. For navigation, I used my phone and also GPS, a bike computer. I had a dedicated bike computer, yeah, which I think can be a good tool depending on your route, but unless you're really looking to spend the money, then I think it can be hard to it could be hard to justify because everybody already has a smartphone, which are pretty good for navigation. Yeah.
Groups together beforehand and like write GPS or something, or?
Yeah, so I had a mapping app that I could use to make routes on my phone and then send it via Bluetooth to my bike computer.
Is that the right GPS or no?
I use several. The one that I use the most is called OSM Android. OSM and. Yeah. Yeah, the bearings develop play. So. Yeah, I think there's some luck involved. There's some. It's a little bit out of our control. And it was still working, like the equipment was still working for me, but I just wanted to avoid having it fail unexpectedly, so I replaced it when I could. Yeah. Yeah, or even just in an opportunity when it would be hard to replace. Yeah. So, costs. My average spending was about $22 per day. And so the trip cost me about $25,000. And I was able to save that money because I was born here in the US, which is pretty nice. So, yeah, that's kind of a reality that I came face to face with a lot. So I think that anybody who, yeah, well, it's an economic blessing basically to have been born here, and I'm glad that I was able to use it to have this experience. So yeah, this is in Ethiopia. Kind of my the crux of my bike tour was ending in Ethiopia there. So thank you. Yeah, question?
In the 2 years and 10 months that you were on this trip, like, did you intend it to be that long, or did you know ahead of time, or did you kind of just extend it as you go?
Yeah, so the origin, inspiration story here, and intentions with it. I had bike toured before within the US. In 2018, I cycled from Oregon to from Oregon to Massachusetts, and then I cycled across the US a second time in 2022, which kind of gave me a taste of what cycle touring is like and what it could be. And then my good friend Curtis, I would credit as the primary inspiration for this trip. And so we actually set out from Portland together intending to go down to Argentina, and not being exactly sure how long it would take. We thought maybe it would take a year or two, and but I was open to letting the experience kind of play out however it felt right. Yeah. Unfortunately, he couldn't cycle the whole thing with me, but he was definitely, I would not have started without him. Yeah. And yeah, the decision to spend a couple months in Africa before going back to Oregon was basically, I had already enrolled in university and figured this is probably going to be an excellent opportunity to get another 4 months in. Yeah.
Did you have to delay your schooling to do that?
No, I just had to cycle a little bit faster in Africa than would be ideal. But yeah.
How many flat tires do you think you got?
So flat tires, maybe like. So I was tubeless, which I like a lot. I only had to install a patch twice, and all the other times it was just a tire plug. So I probably installed like 20 tire plugs. I do have numbers on this, but I think it was like 15 maybe in total. Yeah, I was running 29-inch mountain bike tires, which I think were a great tire choice in the Americas. In Africa, it was kind of hard to source, but I only bought them one time. Yeah.
Did you carry sealant with you, or did you get?
Yeah, I did carry sealant. It lasts a while.
The patch, is that like inside of the tube patch? Like is that the tire patch? Is that what you're talking about? Is it tubeless or baked?
So the two times that I used the patch was when I used an inner tube and then got a puncture in the inner tube. Yeah. And I mean, the story is I had to use an inner tube because the tire was failing and I didn't want it to fail catastrophically. Yeah.
I feel like tubeless is kind of less conventional with like harder to source.
With the what? Less conventional with what?
Was it harder for you to source when you did it like replace it?
I mean, it requires some planning, but I mean, most of the capital cities in the Americas, you could source tubeless tires. Yeah. Even in when I was in Zambia, I bought a pair of tubeless tires, and I had seen a bike shop on the map in the capital in Lusaka, and so I contacted the guy, and he was this ex-pro cyclist who had traveled all around the world cycling for Team Zambia, and he ran like the primary bike shop in Zambia, which didn't actually have a brick and mortar exactly, and his way of sourcing parts was ordering them on eBay. So he didn't actually have like a dealer relationship, but he would just order parts on eBay, and yeah.
What's it like to not be cycling every day?
What's it like to not be cycling every day? It feels like a lot of computer work because I'm in university now. So I've really jumped back into my life here and kind of filled my attention with that, honestly. And yeah, I'm not sure I've totally come to terms with the fact that I'm back yet. Like, sometimes I'll have a memory
impactful experience I had, and it can be a bit difficult to realize that actually happened, and then but there's a lot that I like about being back. Yeah.
You know what you're not supposed to tourists. What countries do you want to hit next?
What countries do I want to hit next? I'd like to go back to Bolivia. I met somebody there who I'd really like to see again. And it was good for cycle touring. As for new countries, maybe, I don't know. Honestly, I haven't been thinking about that. But maybe the Central Asia would be cool. Yeah. Somewhere with less of a language barrier, which maybe is actually not Central Asia. But being able to communicate with people is so huge. Like, I think it's something that makes Latin America particularly good for cycle touring, because you can get by with basically just Spanish. Like, my Spanish even was pretty useful in Brazil. Like, they would just speak Portuguese and I would speak Spanish and we'd kind of understand each other. But in the countries I went through in Africa, English was probably the most common bridge language, but there were so many local dialects, or so many local languages, I mean, that usually I could not communicate with people very well. And it would be really hard to learn enough languages that you could actually like go on a real international bike tour and be able to communicate with everybody. Yeah.
Did you ever use like Strava or like any apps to log your
I did use Strava, yeah.
the entire way, or
Yes. Yeah.
so the following up question to that, because I also use it, is like how do you have the power to fix all of it, to change the traffic?
So I recorded on the bike GPS I have, which really solves that problem because they don't take very much power to record. Yeah.
Are you ever worried about your body not cooperating with you?
Yes. Yeah. The question is if I'm ever worried about my body not cooperating with me. And yeah, it's like an endurance sport. And I've known several other cyclists who have had, I mean, everybody has health issues. And so I got shingles at one point. I got food poisoning plenty of times. But I'm lucky that my body cooperated with me enough that I could do it at all, because not everybody is that lucky. Yeah.
When you're wild camping or pet camping, like I feel like this is within the states and internationally in South America, it's kind of different, right? Like property rights. Do you have any, like how did you navigate that? I know you thought something like asking for permission, like how did you go about finding the spot? Unless you find your route, like I'm going to be getting miles today or whatever. I'll just go ahead of time and be like, I'm going to find some spots.
So you don't know that you'll find a spot, which can be, that's why you spend a lot of time kind of like thinking about that and worrying about it and trying to plan around it. But you don't really know because you've never been there before. Like every road you ride on is new. And I will go out of my way not to trespass, because even if it would turn out all right, I probably won't sleep as well. But yeah, I mean, you got to start looking early and, look on the map to see what's ahead, if there's a city ahead, if there's like a park or something. but ultimately, being flexible and willing to accept that your plan might not work is necessary.
Because I feel like my experience is mostly pertaining to the States, right? You can also go to KOA or the tourist camping with POM and stuff like that. But like internationally, like how are the challenges that you see? Like how does it navigate that?
So, where can you camp internationally? A lot of places don't have so much fences, and a lot of places where I went, I would just go on the side of the road, maybe even within view, and it was fine. I mean, talking to local people is really helpful, of course, and that's a primary resource. Like that, I think should be your first resource probably, to get a feel for things, and to get permission to build a relationship with somebody, and also because that was a big reason why I was there, is to actually interact with people and talk with people and build relationships and meet people. Yeah, but other resources for finding camping, a detailed mapping app that can show buildings, Google imagery, Google reviews. There's an app called iOverlander, which is basically like Google Maps with user-added pins overlaid on top. So there are resources.
Did you ever have anyone get mad at you or like threaten you or anything? Ever? The 27
Yes.
miles? Okay.
Yes, I did.
How many?
So let's see. One anecdote is in Peru. So Venezuela was, a lot of immigrants, or a lot of people are leaving Venezuela for economic reasons, and a lot of the neighboring countries to Venezuela, I noticed, had a really strong kind of anti-nationalist sentiment against Venezuelan people. And one evening I was looking for camping. I talked to some young people on the side of the road, and they seemed to think it would be all right if I set up my tent right there. It ended up being a lot closer to a village than I intended to be, and this is on a small road where there's no tourist traffic really, nobody cycle touring through there. And so a guy comes out of the bushes and tells me that I need to leave. It's getting dark at this point, and he says that I need to leave or the Ronda will come and whip me. The Ronda is a kind of local police force that does rounds. Ronda does rounds at night. And so he threatens me, telling me they'll come and whip me. And I don't want to just leave, even though that's what he's asking me to do, because I don't know where I'll go. And I don't know if if other people nearby, his neighbors, hold a similar attitude. So I asked to speak with the Ronda, and eventually the Ronda come down with an electrical cord and most of the village, and they think I'm Venezuelan. So I showed them my passport, and eventually was able to convince them that I was not Venezuelan. But it took some convincing, because I think they expected me to be Venezuelan based on the first guy's report that I was Venezuelan. And they hadn't really interacted with American tourists before. And eventually they offered me a nice place to put my tent. So it was convenient not to be Venezuelan. Yeah.
We should wrap it up.
Oh, okay.
Let's see the last question, okay? For your entire bike experience, what would you rate it out of 10?
What would I rate the bike experience out of 10? I guess I'll give it a 10. Yeah, I'll give it a 10. Sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks everybody for coming. I hope everybody is inspired to go out and hit some places that you may not have thought about going before in this world. It's a beautiful place that's often nicer than you expect, and it's a lot of fun. And I'll be hosting more of these in January and February.